What was it that got you think of learning Scots?
So first I need to tell you a wee bit about me in Scotland first, to gang into the Hale Scots stuff. As a young lad, 1920, I was into screevings, literature, poetry. From the French standpoint, I grew up in just outside Paris, 15 miles from Paris. So grew up French, no English, no Scots, just French, right? But as a young lad, I had that interest in languages, literature, history, and especially Romanticism. The romantic landscapes, the romantic feelings, the romantic politics, etc. So Victor Hugo in France, we have Aiblins as a representative of that screeving tradition. But I spurred at Scotland as a place, all the cliches you can think of, the Har, the hills, the glens, from the urban French standpoint, that was appealing enough, and that was in my studies at that point, learning about Romanticism in general. Names like Robert Burns, Ossian, Walter Scott. I was aware that those. I couldn't really read them even in English, never mind Scots at that point, but I had the interest. So when I had the chance to go outside France and study for 1 year elsewhere, and my university was twinned with St Andrews here, so I applied, get for it, and landed here, 2013. Interesting year to be in Scotland. 1 year before the referendum, in the midst of the Yes campaign. So this was all happening. 12 weeks after I'd come here, first get to Edinburgh for a Yes rally. That was so it was that part of the zeitgeist, and so that happened. The politics were sort of carrying me even closer to the Scottish interest, because it's very easy to be a St Andrews student, bide here for 1 year and go back to wherever you come from and never think muckle about it again. But for me it was different because of the politics, and because my girlfriend and I, still current partner for Dundee. Say the Romanticism, the politics, the love, interest came together, and after in the year I came back to France to do a 2 year masters in French history. I wouldn't have known at the time what was going to happen next. But I came back to Paris and I was missing Scotland, a muckle deal. I came back in September 2013 for the referendum. There wasn't a good result for me, but it carried some kind of momentum, didn't it? And I came back to Paris with all that, missing my girlfriend, missing Scotland, and after a while it became clear enough for me that the future was Scottish as far as I was concerned, and they weren't money wise for me to make my way back as a student. One way was to think doing a PhD in Scotland, and it ettle for a Scottish subject, and this is what I started thinking about. I'd been reading a bit of Robbie Burns in the meantime, still struggling with it, but interested in it, and Burns had that link with the French Revolution and all, which was all very interesting for me. So I liked Robbie Burns. I liked politics and Scottish politics, and I thought, let's just bring the two together and make a subject out of it. and say I applied to St Andrews for a PhD on Rabbie Burns, and the political yeases of Rabbie Burns after he died in Scotland, which was my PhD subject. I was still in France when I was doing all of that, all the application, and it became rather clear for me that, well, if I was aiding about doing that PhD, I better learn the language, learn the Scots. For me, it was always obvious that again you're serious about understanding a culture, its folk, its people, its sicht into the world, that you'd better learn the tongue. Wherever you gang, it's always going to be the same thing. You didn't need to be a PhD in anthropology to get that one. The language that a group of folk speak is key to their culture and what they are. So it wasn't just for the PhD, it was also to understand my girlfriend a wee bit better, her family a wee bit better, Dundee a wee bit better, in Scotland, Bradley. So this is what got me to make a start in actually learning the language.
Yeah, about learning. I think you've told me already.
I make it tell to before the camera was put on. A wee things. So I was in France. I had internet. I had my girlfriend and a wee friends on top of it. But few resources. The way I get around that was because I had that interest in scribing already. I thought, what could be a good way to keep my interest going? And I thought, something I could do would be to hour set French poetry into Scots. I could edit all that. I've got all the time in the world.
Right.
I got the dictionaries. I had the Facebook groups that I joined at that point, and that was essential. To have folks, not just Scottish folk, we speak a bit Scots, but then have the kind of either academic or at least passion about the language to help others. But I found that in the Facebook groups, the Scots Language Forum, the Scots Lead Forum. Between the dictionaries, folks online, I get about our setting a ween of French poems into Scots. I wouldn't rate the hour settings highly now, but at the time, it was something. And I spent hours in the dictionaries. I also, as I was telling you earlier, I also got the Robinson's Modern Scots Grammar to help a wee bit. Billy Kay's book on the mother tongue. All of that, I was reading that when I was still in Paris, prepping for that PhD to come. That's how I got round to understanding the language, learning the words, learning the grammars, like you would do any languages. You just need to put in the hours and hey, a wee of resources and a wee of folks to help you. And I was fortunate enough in the internet age to hear that.
Obviously, we've got poems in Scots. And what does Scots offer to you as a poet that you wouldn't get just for writing in English?
Aye, thanks, Colin. There's muckle that Scots can offer a French guy and a French poet. For the French tongue is mostly a Latin tongue. There's bits of Saxon in it. Very few bits of Celtic and Gaulish in it, but mostly it's a Latin tongue. And it would be very easy for a French lad in the UK skriven in English, or speaking in English, to rely heavily on the French bits in the English lead. For in the English, it's 50% French and 50% Saxon, Scots pushes you to focus on the Germanic roots, on the Germanic and the Norse roots. Of course, as a French guy, I'm very happy in a way the French connection with Scotland and some of the French words that make it into the Scots dictionary. And I always make sicker to use some of the word sicker is a good example, actually. Sécurité. But as a French poet, it forces you to grapple with, to meddle with the Germanic, Norse, sometimes Celtic roots a wee bit in there. And in the prosody line, in the rhythm of what you're screaming, it's completely centred. As a French poet, you're used to your French language. Well, especially in the poetic tradition, cares muckle deal about plurisyllabic words, langer words. French is sick a monotonous language in terms of the stresses, and stresses they matter to your poets. It's say monotonous. It's always the last syllable of the word that you will stress. So it doesn't matter if you have lang words, because the music will more or less always be the same. It's very purring, ronronnant, as we would say in French. Whereas the Scots world is much shorter, much blunter, often monosyllabic, Saxon in that way. And for me, it has been a delight since day one, then decided to our set of ween French poems into Scots to realise that. And it took me a while to understand it was still okay as a French guy to use French words still together with the Scots, and that's where the poetry book that I first set a couple of years down. That's the whole idea, isn't it? It's French and Scots combined because they're so centred, they're so different, but together in a way which is not the togetherness of Saxon and French that the English had done, in a way that is different. That's Itlin at finding an alternative linguistically and politically to all that. But together they make music, and I think that's what I got for the Scots, as well, keeping my French perspective, but opening up to the possibilities of Scots and the aesthetics of Scots and what it can do poetically.
Felt like how easy was it when you were looking for a publisher? Did you hate to try money before Blue Dial taking it on?
No, I didn't try money, but I had bidden my time. In that it's no doubt a jealous, it's easier now to publish the first set Scots verse screaming, nor it was 40 years ago. I'm nae sicker, but a jealous that's the case. However, as a debut poet, screaming a book that's alien to Scots, we a dribble of French, but alien to Scots. Most poets will have a wee Scots poems and most of the book in English, and then it's okay to find first sitters in Kirkconnell in Manchester, or at least in the north of England, you'll find folks ready to first sit that. But only in Scots for a debut poet that nobody kens. That's a bit of a harder one. You got some good folks doing some good work in Scotland in publishing. You got Tabsaltiri in the northeast. I mean in poetry publishing. You got Tabsaltiri in the northeast. As it turns out, you got Blue Diode Press now in Edinburgh. But it's still Lewis. Lewis has been doing a broad job for decades now, so they're worth mentioning and all. But you're talking about 3 flower gallant industries, but it's just a weena folk we're talking about. And if again you're a debut poet, it's always going to be difficult. I was fortunate enough to, after a few years screeving in Scots and getting bits of poetry out there, I was fortunate enough to then send a manuscript to the Edwin Morgan Prize, and Kathleen Jamie was on that jury, and she is someone with a keen interest in she's Creevit Scots herself. So apparently it turned out that some of my stuff appealed to her, so I got shortlisted for that, which then make it the hell business a hell lot easier for a debut poet to then go and talk to Blue Diode and for them to say, aye, okay, then we must publish that. But it's still a sore ficht for young poets screeving in Scots today to get the stuff out there, although it is it's making for it. There's this progress happen, and folks like Rob at Blue Diode Press or Tabsaltiri are doing a broad job to get some fresh voices out there into the Scots world.